people say we all came from the waters, and others say from deep inside the earth. Some say that we were sent from other planets, and from the light of the sun and stars we were given birth. But you're the fire of creation, the breath of the eternal, the rhythm in our hearts, and the words upon our tongue. Your music fills our songs and sets our feet to dancing, and gives us joyful wisdom that is from you we have come. From you we all have come. Some say we're from a cradle of civilization, and others from the most beautiful garden on earth. Some say a bird from heaven delivers our children to the mothers and fathers who long to give them birth. You're the fire of creation, the breath of the eternal, the rhythm in our hearts, and the words upon our tongue. Your music fills our songs and sets our feet to dancing, and gives us joyful wisdom that is from you we have come. From you we all have come. This precious gift of life is a wondrous treasure. There's no way to express our thankfulness. The beauty of your grace we cannot measure, nor the greatest gift of all, your blessed love. You're the fire of creation, the breath of the eternal, the rhythm in our hearts, and the words upon our tongue. Your music fills our songs and sets our feet to dancing, and gives us joy-filled wisdom that is from you we have come. From you we all have come. We all are the one. We all are one. We all are one.
Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Homaham Jyotirgamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya Aviraha Virmaedhi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukha Te Namaham Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. And reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is, what is your philosophy? And if we were to ask this question of the man in the street, that is the ordinary common man, maybe he would say, live and let live. Or carpe diem, seize the day. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Now these are good bumper sticker slogans, but they're not philosophy. Philosophy is all about first principles. It's about an inquiry into our basic beliefs. It's about asking age-old questions. And a philosopher is a person who ponders age-old questions. And we can visualize the famous painting of the Dutch master Rembrandt of an ancient bearded man seated by a window in his house. The whole scene is covered in shadow and darkness, except through the window comes a stream of light which illumines his face and his hands. Looking at that painting, we can gives us a feeling of introspection. It's thought-provoking, and it kind of encourages us to ponder the mysteries of life. Now, the Greek philosophers visualized philosophy as a mansion. And visualize yourself maybe driving through the countryside, and you go down a country road, and there you see a very grand and impressive, stately old building. It's the mansion of philosophy. And, well, it's surrounded by beautiful gardens. It's built on a firm foundation. Of course, it has, 2 stories minimum, surrounded by a veranda and by balconies, many rooms. And it's laid on a firm foundation, and the foundation is built on a solid ground. It's been there for a long time. And in this mansion there lives the goddess of knowledge, Sophia, that is the goddess of wisdom. And philosophers from around the world come to visit her and make inquiries and dialogue with her. And when they leave, they are filled with inspiration, and they marvel at her wisdom. So let's look here at philosophy, East and West. We're going to begin here with the Western philosophy. And it's often they're often considered to be 5 branches of inquiry. And this morning, instead of using the metaphor of a tree and its branches, we're going to use the mansion. And we're going to look at the different parts and the rooms of the mansion in a 5-fold process. Now we just begin, we just go to the place where it stands. We go to the building site, and we look down, and there we see the very first domain of philosophical inquiry. It's called metaphysics. The first question of metaphysics, since we're standing on the ground, the first question, see, in every one of these areas and rooms, we're going to be asked age-old questions. So we may take note of these. Very first question is, what is the ground of being? Being is the universal predicate. Everything that exists has being. And therefore, it's natural that the first question that a wondering, inquiring mind would ask is, what is the fundamental nature of being? What is the stuff out of which all this is made? What is the substance? What is the source of all this that I see and all this that I am? And, we can hardly imagine, back in ancient times, pre-modern, pre-scientific era, where would you start? Maybe you would start like the pre-Socratic philosopher Thales, who concluded that the fundamental essence of all things was water. And you may think, water? But when you think about it, that's a pretty good start. Because after all, you're dealing here with the 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether. It's reasonable to think that the most fundamental of those would be water. Because is it matter? Is it mind? Is it spirit? Is it one? Or is it many? Is there a God? Is there a soul? What is the nature of reality? These are the questions of metaphysics. These questions pass very naturally into the second domain, which we could visualize as the foundation. Metaphysics is the ground. Epistemology is the foundation. That is, once we have determined, made strong claims about the nature of ultimate reality, we would naturally ask ourselves the question, how do you know that? And it's a reasonable question. How do you know anything? In fact, can we know anything? What are the means of knowledge? And of course, all of us here are interested in knowledge, because otherwise, why would you be here? Because this is the Vedanta society. That's called the Knowledge Society. The very first question of the Upanishads was always, what is that by knowing which all this becomes known? That's the ultimate knowledge. And that's the goal of our inquiry. Many different answers given by philosophers, and we can think of another famous masterpiece painting by the Renaissance painter Raphael. It was entitled The School of Athens. It pictures a great building, and on the stairway and the veranda coming out of the building, in the center of the painting as we look at it on our left, there are two figures. On our left, we see Plato, who's standing there with one arm upraised, pointing up into the heavens, symbolizing his theory of ideal forms. And on the right side is pictured Aristotle, with his hand outstretched towards the world. And so we have the rationalist and the empiricist, the idealist and the scientist, the realist, two great streams of Western philosophy. And all around them, those two central figures, are many other detailed portraits of famous thinkers of ancient times, mathematicians and scientists. And the whole feeling of the painting as we look at it is one of we can appreciate the pursuit of higher learning, the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. Now, metaphysics and ethics, that is the ground and the foundation, naturally leads us into the main part of the building, of the mansion, that is the whole living area. We could visualize it as kind of the first floor of that mansion. This is where people live. And it's all about the practical implications of metaphysics and of philosophy. That is, the ultimate truth is always the ultimate good. And the good is that by which, it's the possession of the good which gives us happiness. And therefore, it's the good that is the ultimate truth, which is the most important thing. It's the source. It's the fundamental thing. It's reality. It's that which gives meaning and purpose to our lives. And therefore, it's called the good. It's called the supreme value. And ethics asks us the question, what is that value? What is value? What are the instrumental values which reflect the supreme good? What are the virtues that we need to acquire in order to realize our values? How can we live a good life? That is, how can we realize the good and achieve happiness and self-fulfillment? What is the way to realize our philosophy? These are all questions of ethics, and they define our purpose, our goal of life, our understanding of what is right and wrong, what is good and evil. But this domain of ethics, this is the main floor. It begins to lead also to, as we go maybe up the stairs, to more secondary rooms. But first we can see that the whole mansion is it's designed. That is, there's an architecture. There's unity and diversity. We go from one area naturally, or we're led into another area, which are the implications that are entailed by the former. And so, and not only that, all of these rooms and the mansion itself is a place meant for living. That is, this is not a hotel for passing travelers. The purpose is to enable us to live and to realize these truths. And so we can maybe go from the first floor up into the more secondary rooms. Certainly we get a fourth room, usually included, is political theory. As we call it politics, but it's not partisan politics. It's the principles of good government. That is, it's the social implications, man as a rational social animal, that's part of our inquiry into our very being, is what are the principles by which we live in society? And it used to be, some time ago, that every schoolboy would have to read in a high school classroom Plato's Republic. And of course, the Republic is all about an inquiry into what is good government. And philosophy, you think, well, why is that in philosophy? Well, philosophy forms and shapes all of our ideas about individual rights and freedom and equality and social values and moral right and wrong. And above all, the question that we're asked in this room of philosophy, and the fundamental question of the Plato's Republic, is what is justice? And very important for us too, as part of our worldview. So that's political theory. And the last room, now we're considering the 5 branches of philosophy, the different rooms of the mansion. The 5th room, which is in many ways the most, in many ways very important, is because, well, all of these different inquiries are very abstract and metaphysical. We can't really, when we begin to think about these conceptual ideas of reality and truth, good and evil, it's difficult for us to wrap our brains around it. Why? Because we can't, they're too abstract. We can't visualize it. We can't see it. We can't touch it. And we can't, it's not tangible. And therefore, we need the fine arts. We need this domain of aesthetics. We need to, that is, we're talking here about painting and literature and music and sculpture. Art is sometimes defined as that which makes the universal particular, and the particular universal. That is, it enables us to perceive that which is abstract and conceptual. It enables us to take something which is concrete and perceptual and see the universal implications of it. This is the purpose of art. As they say, one picture is worth 1,000 words. We can imagine that in the mansion of philosophy, that the goddess of knowledge has many mirrors that reflect the different aspects of higher truths. It's these, so aesthetics enables us to ponder some of the principles of art and beauty, enables us to develop and understand how to develop our viveka, our discrimination, and to appreciate the things of beauty that will enable us to represent our philosophy. So this is aesthetics. Now these are all the 5 rooms, we could say, of typically of Western philosophy and of philosophy in general. And we're asked many questions. And many of them are, they may seem to us to be very questions. But the fact is that each and every person, everyone in the world, has asked themselves these questions. Humans are natural-born philosophers. That is, we naturally seek the truth about ourselves and about our place in the world. And so consciously or unconsciously, we're asking all these fundamental questions. And not only that, but consciously or unconsciously, in the course of our lives, we have answered all of these questions. That is, we have formed very early on a world view that enables us to navigate and to live our lives. And not only that, not only have we asked these questions and answered them and formed a world view, but we're not armchair philosophers. We're not hypocrites. That is, we live our philosophy. And that all of our thoughts, feelings, and actions are determined by our ideology and our basic beliefs, our core beliefs, and the first principles, which we hold dear to ourselves, deep in our psyche. And even though we may aspire to other beliefs and profess other beliefs, we're always true to our real worldview, which is what we know and believe in our heart is true. And what is that? That's the answers to all these questions that we asked before. And so when we begin to see that is we begin to see how important it is our basic view of life, our life view. And in fact, it shapes our whole destiny. And you know how it goes. It goes thoughts, feelings, speech, and actions. That's the progression. You hold a thought in your mind. That is, a thought means a belief. A belief is a complete thought. It's like a sentence. Well, it is a sentence. And this belief, the beliefs and desires, these are our thoughts. Around every belief, there appears an aura, a feeling, an emotion that prompts us to, that is, that we have a cognitive level, and we have an affective level, cognition, volition, affection, and then volition. That is, our thoughts and our feelings prompt us to act and to behave. And behavior just means what? Speech. We speak our minds, and that's natural. Every human being, that's a natural function of being human, is to speak, and to speak your mind. And our behavior, which is just acting out what we think about, and what we feel, and what we've spoken to ourselves about, we act that out in our everyday behavior. And so we begin to see the importance here of the core beliefs. And we can begin to see the importance of how necessary it is to see the importance of our question this morning. What is your philosophy? And the importance of inquiry into what is the nature of our worldview. That is, the beliefs that determine all of our thoughts and feelings. In fact, what this is, the whole thing is a call to introspection. Now, in ancient times, the philosopher Socrates, that was his famous saying that we need to inquire into into our heart-filled thoughts and feelings, and the unexamined life is not worth living. This Socrates says there. What does he mean by that? Well, he doesn't mean it's not really worth living, it's not worth anything, but it means that it's not really worth what it's costing you to live your life. And therefore, in order to get your money's worth for this life, you really want to go deeper into inquiring into the nature of what are your core beliefs. So now, as soon as we begin to do this, we begin to practice introspection. Very unusual. That is, the mind, when we're born, it says in the Upanishads, we're born, the eyes open, our ears are open, we see and hear and taste and touch everything outside. The consciousness, our whole consciousness is directed outwards. Very rare person gets the idea, for the origin of ancient times had the idea. What an amazing thought to close your eyes and look within. It's introspection. This is the wisdom of the East, is calling us to introspection. Now, when we begin to do this, in the very beginning, we're going to feel like it's very out that many of our beliefs are wrong-minded and are false and are just downright fictions. We'll find, too, that a lot of our mind is compartmentalized and that our beliefs in one compartment are contradict those of another part. So there's a lot of self-contradiction in the different underground rooms of the psyche. And the feelings follow suit. And so we have a lot of conflicting feelings that are the source of much of our confusion and our difficulties in life. And we begin to analyze our thought processes. Why do I believe what I believe? And we discover that we're guilty of a lot of fallacious reasoning. And that we've basically formed our whole worldview in a kind of a haphazard way, beginning from the earliest childhood, laying down images that define our self-image and our self-concept, and our conception of ourselves and the world in which we live, and that it's all been pieced together. And I always think of that song by Johnny Cash. It was about a guy who he worked in an automobile factory. He was on the assembly line, but he didn't make. He was just an assembly line worker. He'd love to have a brand new car, but he couldn't afford it. So he got the idea one day he's going to smuggle out the parts for a new car in his lunchbox. And so every couple days he'd get a little piece of a carburetor and he'd put a little tail light one day in his lunchbox, take it home. Well, time passed. And after 20 years, he retired. And he had all the parts necessary to assemble a complete automobile, which he did. And that's the refrain to the old song. You'll know me. The refrain is, I got it one piece at a time, and it didn't cost me a dime. You'll know me when I go through your town. We can imagine this car with all these different models driving through town. This is how we put together our worldview. And not only that, not only have we pieced it together, but as we begin to consider the so-called mansion of philosophy, the mansion, as we visualized, well, it's not at all the way that we kind of idealize. We've idealized it, because the worldview, our view, can hardly be called a mansion at all. That it's not only was it put together piece by piece, that is, there's no architect, there's no designer, there's no unity and diversity. Not only that, but it's been very poorly designed. You walk into a new house, and you walk through the front door, and you run into a brick wall. And we think, well, what is this? You go around the wall into the living room, and there in the middle of the living room, you see the bathroom. And there's no walls there. You have no privacy. And you think, well, what kind of a house is this? Where's the kitchen? Oh, that's upstairs. You go upstairs, and you go down these long, winding, dark corridors, lead from one room to another. There's no windows. And you think, this is a very inconvenient, frustrating house in which to live. And this house represents kind of our worldview. That's the sum total of our belief system. And it causes us frustration and suffering. And therefore, what we need, it seems, if we're not happy in life, it seems that what we need is a new philosophy. We need to have a new restructuring. We have to have a new look at the way we've put our belief system together. And so now we can turn here to the awakening to the light, the windows, the wisdom of the East. That is Indian philosophy. Indian philosophy, it's called in Sanskrit, the word is darshana. Now darshana just means seeing. And you know how when you go to a temple, and you're a pilgrim, and you come to the temple, and there your own purpose is to see the deity in the temple. That's called darshana. You're not just, hopefully, if you're going there in a right state of mind, you're not just seeing with your physical eyes, but you're seeing with your heart open. And it's a transformative encounter. You're really having an encounter with the deity. That's darshan. So a darshana, that is philosophy, is a kind of a mirror of the true nature of reality. And saints and sages, that is the rishis, the seers in ancient times, they in superconscious self-realization, they realized these higher truths, and they taught their disciples, and time passed, and there arose systems of philosophy which were interpretations of the revelations of these rishis. And there were 6 different levels there of these systems in Indian philosophy. The last of which, the sixth level, is called the Vedanta. The Vedanta has three different perspectives: dualism, monism, non-dualism, and all of these systems, that is, these are different schools of Vedanta, that all of these 6 systems form kind of a stairway to heaven. That is a hierarchy. It's a hierarchical progression. That is, there's unity in diversity. There's diversity. There's a plurality. But there's hierarchy. All of the philosophies of India share the same basic fundamental beliefs, the fundamental realizations about the nature of ultimate reality, Brahman, Atman, the soul, Maya, karma, cycles, all of these great themes of the Vedanta philosophy, which you've heard. These are shared by all the systems of Indian and schools of Indian philosophy, and they differ in their interpretations. But all of them also aspire to the goal, which is darshan, that is the vision of the highest truths and the highest reality. So this is Indian philosophy, quite a radically different perspective on approach to this subject. Indian philosophy is such that it is very holistic, in the sense that if you go to a Western university, you'll find that the psychology department and the philosophy department and the science, certainly a religion, these are all in different buildings. They don't hardly talk to each other. But in this more holistic, ancient, pre-modern, that is classical understanding, these are all different aspects of the same subject. That is, the diamond, just as a diamond has different facets. So philosophy and psychology and science and all this, these are all different approaches to basically the same fundamental truths. And in ancient times, alongside of the development of each one of these systems of thought, there also developed another system which was very practical in its application. We call them yogas, but they're just means to realize the ideals of the philosophy. And so there are many different paths that developed alongside of the different schools of philosophy. And therefore we had the science and the applied science. We have philosophy and religion. We have theory and practice. These two go together. They're two sides of the same coin. And so they may ask, certainly it's true about the philosophy and the practice. In India, philosophy and religion are kind of two aspects of the same thing. They're just different versions. And so you may ask yourself, what about this Vedanta philosophy? Is this what is it? Is it a philosophy or a religion? Well, certainly it is, we could say. It's like a Western, because we're kind of struggling, those of us who are students of comparative religions, or sometimes we're kind of trying to make correspondences. Well, it's something like a Western philosophy. It kind of gives us a worldview, and it does employ all of the techniques of reason, rational thinking, and justification of belief. And certainly it values reason and never contradicts reason. On the other hand, it's unlike a Western philosophy in that it requires, before you begin to study it, it requires a moral and ethical foundation. That is, ideally, the adhikari is one who has met certain moral standards. And not only that, after you finish the course of rational inquiry, comes the practice that is the superconscious experience, which is the realization of the ideals. So in this sense, it's not at all like a Western philosophy. Is it then a religion? Well, Vedanta, you could say Vedanta is a religion in the sense of the old etymology of the word, re ligare, which means connecting back, linking back up to reality. That's what religion originally meant, connecting again with the God within, with the truth. So in that sense, it's religious. Certainly it teaches universal moral principles. But unlike a religion, it is in no ways sectarian. It's not an organized institutional beliefs, so depending on faith, on doctrine and dogma, and all of these are not part of the conception of the spiritual practice in yoga So it's kind of unlike a religion. So we're kind of left, is it a philosophy or religion? Well, we could say it's unique. And we can compare, just for our interest, we can compare two different ways of doing self-inquiry. That is, by self-inquiry here I mean inquiring into the nature of our worldview. The first is that of Western systems, which is it's entirely a rational inquiry into the truth, beginning with the archetypal system of transcendental idealism, of Plato and rationalism, and the idea that reason is the ultimate means to obtain knowledge and the ultimate proof. And by reason here, Plato, of course, means reason and intuition. Rational and transrational. Eastern philosophy. So we can visualize ourselves in a Western system. We visualize ourselves on the streets maybe of Athens, having a dialogue with Socrates. And he would ask you, well, what is justice? And you'd give an answer, and you'd go back and forth. And when you left the conversation, you'd be kind of enlightened in a way, because you'd have totally realized how confused you were and how you have a much better understanding. Eastern philosophy, quite radically different. The focus and emphasis is all on enlightenment and on realization. And the idea is that somehow this inquiry, this search, implies that we're looking for something. We're seeking, that is, we're suffering. And when we're suffering, who would we seek out? That is, wise men in ancient times, they were considered to be like doctors of the soul. And so you'd seek out some holy man or some rishi who like a doctor, he would diagnose your problem and give you some medicine. And the idea is you'd go and you would then apply that medicine, which is the applied philosophy. And so we have two different approaches, radically different approaches to the inquiry. Now, some of you may say, well, we've been talking here about, all that we've been talking about, it sounds very cerebral and metaphysical and abstract and out of touch with this otherworldly. And you may say, I really prefer not to go down that route. I would rather deal with everyday, practical, concrete, real-life problems. That's what I prefer. You may object, say that. And of course the answer of the Vedanta philosophy is, well, that's very good, because that's what the whole of the inquiry is about. The real philosophy is all about inquiring into existential questions. Existential questions is like, what is reality? What is who am I? What is the nature of what is my identity? What is my authenticity? These are existential problems of meaning, of inner emptiness, of existential despair, of mortality, of what is good and evil. These are all everyday, real-life problems. In order to that's why what we need in order to navigate the ups and downs of our lives, we need to begin to think about that. What we need is wisdom. Wisdom means philosophy, love of wisdom. That's what it means. Wisdom just means insight. It means deeper knowledge about ourselves and about what we believe to be true, and about that will enable us to negotiate our life more successfully. So I guess that's the teaching, that's the idea of the subject this morning. And Vedanta kind of teaches us that we ought not to discount the importance of philosophy. And Sir Francis Bacon, who was the founder of the scientific method, he once said that a little philosophy leadeth the mind to atheism, but depth in philosophy leadeth the mind into religion. I always thought that there was a lot of truth in that quotation. Because sometimes you often hear people think that, people who have a little philosophy will often say, philosophy is just a route of many roads leading from nowhere to nothing. You've heard that. A philosopher is a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there. This is somebody who has kind of a introduction to philosophy. But the fact is that Vedanta teaches us that the man is not blind. It's not a blind man. We're not blind. We have reason. We have our conscience. We have higher intuitions. We have an inner guide. We're not in a dark room. We have saints and sages and rishis. We have the whole history of inquiry of others into these higher truths. We have traditions that help us to learn. We're not in a dark room. And the cat is not black. Black means, like dark matter, means you can't know it. It's invisible. You can't ever know. You can't gain knowledge of it. But no, we can know the ultimate truths about life, and we can realize them. And the cat exists. That is, the truths about life, the teaching Vedanta teaches us, that these higher truths can be realized. That is, they exist. They can be discovered. And that's the goal of our spiritual life, is to discover those truths and to realize them for ourselves.
From the one has come the many, in the many shines the one. Of all the forms there are not any that have not come from the one. Smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, the light beyond all darkness, the love within our hearts. In the stillness of the mountains, in vast skies of brilliant blues, in ancient worlds and modern cities, that wondrous light of lights shines through. Brighter than the brightest, higher than the highest, deeper than the deepest, the love within our hearts. Across this world are many people, So many creatures, great and small, we are all children of the Mother. She is the one who made us all. Beauty of all beauty, yet beyond both time and space, still dwelling in each moment, bestowing on us her grace. From the one has come the many, in the many shines the one. Of all the forms there are not any that have not come from the one. Smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, the light beyond all darkness, the love within our hearts, the light beyond all darkness, the love within our hearts.
The subject next Sunday is Who is My Mother? And Pravrajika Krishna Prana will speak. Om Dyo Shanti Antariksha Ham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apa Shanti O Shadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal universal peace enter our souls and beings. Om. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all.